My name is Lucy. I live in a small town with my parents and my younger sister. Her name is Emily. We are close in age. She is 2 years younger than me. We always do things together. She is loud and happy. I am quiet and calm. We are very different, but we love each other. I like to read and speak. Emily likes to dance and sing. I like to stay inside with my books. Emily likes to go outside and move around. When we were children, we played school at home. I was always the teacher. I stood with a book in my hand. Emily sat on the floor and listened. She said I had a good voice. She said I spoke clearly and with feeling. I liked when she said that. It made me feel strong. In school, I gave small speeches. I stood in front of the class. I talked about animals, trees, and books. The teachers liked my voice. They always smiled when I spoke. Some students clapped. Some listened quietly. After class, my teacher told me, "You can do more with this. You speak well." I felt proud. I wanted to speak on big stages one day. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted people to listen and understand. Emily had her own dream. She wanted to be on stage, too. But in a different way. She liked to perform. She liked music, lights, and costumes. At home, she danced in front of the mirror. She sang into a hairbrush. She said, "One day, I will be on a big stage." We were both dreamers, but we had little money. Our father worked long hours. Our mother worked at a local shop. We helped them when we could. We cleaned the house. We washed the dishes. We studied hard because we wanted a better life. One day at school, my teacher gave me a paper. It was an application for a speech camp. The camp was in the city. It was for girls from small towns. The paper said, "Do you like to speak? Do you want to grow? Come join us." My heart beat fast. I read the paper again and again. The camp was for 1 month. They would teach speaking skills. They would teach writing, too. There would be a final speech on stage. People would watch. Cameras would record. I wanted to go. I had never gone to the city alone, but I wanted this chance. I came home and showed the paper to my parents. My father looked at the cost. He was quiet. My mother said, "This is good. But we must think." That night I did not sleep much. I looked at the paper. I thought about the stage. I thought about what I could become. In the morning, my parents said, "Yes." My mother said, "You can apply. If they choose you, we will find a way." I smiled. I filled out the form. I wrote about my dream. I wrote about my town and my school. I sent it and waited. 3 weeks later, a letter came. I was chosen. Only 20 girls got a place. I was one of them. I ran to tell my parents. They smiled. My mother hugged me. My father gave me a small bag. Emily clapped and danced. She said, "You are going to be famous." The city was big. There were tall buildings and many cars. I stayed in a room with 2 girls. The camp teachers were nice. They gave us notebooks and pens. They showed us how to stand, how to speak, and how to share our stories. I felt nervous at first, but after a few days, I felt good. I learned many new things. I asked questions. I listened carefully. I practiced each night. After 2 weeks, the head teacher called me. She said, "Lucy, you are doing very well. We want you to give the final speech. It will be on a big stage. There will be cameras. We will share the video online." I did not know what to say. I smiled. I said, "Thank you." I wanted to scream with joy, but I stayed calm. I called home. My mother cried. My father said, "We are proud." Emily shouted, "You did it." I wrote my speech with care. I wrote about my life, my town, and my dream. I practiced every night in front of the mirror. I looked at myself and said, "You can do this." The final day was close. I was ready. Then something changed. 2 days before the final speech, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Emily fell at school." I sat down. I said, "What happened?" She said, "She fell on the stairs. She broke her leg. She needs surgery. She is in pain." I felt cold. My hand shook. I asked, "Is she okay?" My mother said, "She keeps asking for you." I looked at the bed, at my speech papers, at my bag. I closed my eyes. My sister needed me. I had waited so long for this chance, but now I was not sure. That night, I sat alone in the small garden near the building. I looked at the sky. I thought about the stage. I thought about Emily in the hospital bed. She had always helped me. She had always cheered for me. Now she was in pain. She was scared. She needed me. In the morning I went to the teacher. I said, "I have to go. My sister is hurt. She needs me." The teacher was quiet. She said, "The speech is tomorrow." I said, "I know, but I can't stay." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." I packed my bag. I took a bus home. It took 6 hours. When I reached the hospital, Emily was sleeping. Her face was white. My mother saw me and cried. She said, "Thank you for coming." I held Emily's hand. She opened her eyes and said, "You came?" I smiled. I said, "Of course," she asked. "What about your speech?" I said, "You are more important," she cried. I wiped her tears. I stayed by her side. The next day, the camp went on. Another girl gave the speech. I saw the video later. She did well. She smiled and spoke with feeling. People clapped. The teacher sent me a message. She wrote, "We missed you, but you made a brave choice." I watched the video. I was happy for the girl, but my heart hurt. That was my stage. That was my moment. I gave it away. No one would ever know. No one would ever see. Emily said, "I'm sorry." I said, "Don't be. You are my sister. I love you." But later when I was alone, I cried. My days at home were busy again. Emily had to stay in bed. Her leg was in a cast. She could not move much. I helped her eat, bathe, and sit up. My mother cooked. I cleaned. My father worked longer hours. He looked tired, but he smiled at us each night. Emily said sorry many times. I told her to stop. I said, you did nothing wrong. But I knew she felt bad. One night, I heard her crying. I went into her room and asked, why are you crying? She said, you gave up your dream because of me. I sat beside her and said, you are not a dream breaker. You are my sister. She held my hand and said, I will never forget this. I said, me neither. The days passed slowly. Emily's pain got better. After 3 weeks, she could move with crutches. She started smiling again. I saw her look at the mirror one day and hum a small song. She was healing. One afternoon, a letter came from the city. It was from the speaking camp. The letter had a photo of the final speech. It was the girl who took my place. She stood in front of a large crowd. Lights were behind her. Her arms were open. She looked proud and strong. I looked at the photo for a long time. My heart felt heavy. I tried not to cry. I put the letter inside a drawer. Emily saw it. She came close and said, she did well. I said, yes, she did. Then Emily said, but it should have been you. I smiled and said, maybe next time. But I wasn't sure there would be a next time. 2 months passed. Emily was walking again. She returned to school. I helped her with homework. She worked hard. She read more books. Now she asked me questions about speech and writing. She said, I want to speak like you. I said, you already speak well. One evening, her teacher called. She asked if Emily could take part in a local school event. It was a talent day. Children could sing, dance, or give a short speech. Emily wanted to join. She looked at me with big eyes and said, will you help me? I said, yes. We sat together each night. I helped her write a speech. She chose to speak about courage. I asked, why this topic? She said, because I saw it in you. I helped her practice. She stood in front of me and spoke. She was nervous. She forgot a few words, but she tried again. Her voice was soft, but sweet. I said, speak from your heart. People will listen. The day of the event came. The school hall was full. Parents sat in small chairs. Children waited in lines. Emily stood behind the curtain. She held my hand and said, I'm scared. I said, you will do fine. She said, what if I forget my words? I said, then just speak your truth. When her name was called, she walked slowly to the stage. I sat in the back row. My heart beat fast. Emily took a deep breath. She looked at the crowd. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft at first, but it grew stronger. She spoke about fear. She spoke about family. She said, my sister gave up her dream for me. That is courage. The room was silent. People listened closely. At the end, some clapped. One teacher wiped her eyes. Emily came down and hugged me. She said, did I do okay? Said, you did more than okay. After the event, many parents came to me. They said, your sister speaks well. Some said, she is brave. I smiled and thanked them. Emily stood next to me and smiled, too. That night, she gave me a note. It said, the stage you gave up gave me my voice. I cried when I read it. I hugged her and said, it was always your time. Later that month, Emily joined a youth club. They had small programs for music, dance, and speech. She joined the speech group. She came home excited after each meeting. She told me about the games and the lessons. She showed me her notebook full of ideas. I helped her build her words. One day, her youth club planned a public event. It would be in the town center. A big stage would be there. The best speaker from each group would be chosen. The leaders picked Emily. She came home jumping with joy. She said, Lucy, they chose me. I was happy but also quiet. I looked at her. She stood with her notebook full of light. I saw myself in her, but I didn't feel sad. I felt proud. She said, will you come watch me? I said, of course. On the day of the event, the stage was set in the town square. People from many places came. The sound of music filled the air. Chairs were full. Children ran around with paper flags. The crowd grew as the evening came. Emily stood behind the curtain. She wore a white dress. She held her speech paper. She looked at me and said, I'm ready. I said, you were born ready. She walked to the microphone. She looked at the sky. Then she looked at the people. She began to speak. This time her voice was clear and strong. She spoke about small dreams. She spoke about people who help us grow. She spoke about quiet courage. Then she said, my sister Lucy is the reason I'm here today. She gave me her place so I could find mine. People looked at me. Some clapped. Some smiled. When she finished, she stood still for a moment. Then she smiled. The crowd stood up. They gave her a big hand. My eyes were full. My hands hurt from clapping. After the event, the youth club leader came to me. She said, Emily has a gift, but I think she learned that gift from you. I said she found it herself. I only helped her see it. At home, Emily put her certificate on the wall. She looked at it and said, this is our win. I said, yes, it is. That night, I sat on the roof. The stars were out. I thought about my dream. I thought about the speech I never gave. I thought about the stage I never stood on. But then I looked through the window. I saw Emily smiling. I saw her reading her notebook. I saw her planning her next speech. And I knew I had done something big. I gave up my moment. But I gave her a future. Months passed. Emily kept growing. She joined more programs. She gave more speeches. People started to know her name. Teachers said, your sister is a star. Strangers came to my mother and said, Emily is special. At first, it felt strange. I was the one who loved speaking first. I was the one who had the dream. Now she was the one standing in the light. But I did not feel angry. I felt something else. I felt peace. I still helped her. I helped with her ideas. I helped with her writing. We sat together in the evenings. She asked, "How does this sound?" I said, "Try again. Speak slower." She listened to me. She always said, "I would not be here without you." One day, Emily's school got a letter. A speaking group in the city had heard about her. They invited her to come for training. It was a short course, 1 week long. She was very happy, but she was also nervous. She said, "I don't know if I'm ready." I said, "You are more ready than you think." She packed her bag. I helped her with her things. I gave her my notebook. The one I used at the speaking camp. I said, "This helped me once. Now it will help you." She smiled and hugged me. She said, "Thank you for everything." I said, "Just do your best." She left the next morning. I stood at the bus stop and waved as she left. I stood there for a long time, even after the bus was gone. I looked at the road. I thought about my own trip to the city. It felt like a long time ago. It was only a year, but I felt like a different person now. That week, the house was quiet. I helped my mother with the cooking. I cleaned the floors. I read books. I wrote a little, but mostly I waited. I waited for the phone to ring. I wanted to hear about her new day. Emily called every night. She told me about the class. She said they ask hard questions, but I try. She said, "The other girls are good, but I want to learn more." She said, "I miss home, but I am happy." I listened. I smiled. I felt proud. On the last day of the course, the center had a final event. Parents were invited, but we could not go. It was far and we had work. I waited all day for her call. At night, my phone rang. It was Emily. She was crying. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "They chose one speaker to record." I said, "And she said they picked me." My heart jumped. She said they said I was clear, honest, and strong. I said, "You are all those things." She said, "They will post the video online next week." I said, "I can't wait to watch it." She came back home 2 days later. She ran to me and showed her certificate. I looked at it and smiled. She sat beside me and said, "You started this. This was your road. You gave it to me." I said, "It was always for you. I just helped you walk on it." We watched the video together. She stood on a stage with bright lights. Her voice was clear. She looked calm. At the end of her speech, she said, "I thank my sister Lucy. She gave me her dream. Now it is mine." I cried. I held her hand. She cried too. The next week, her school invited me to speak. They said, "You helped Emily. Now tell us your story." I was not ready. I had not spoken in front of people for a long time, but I said yes. I stood in front of her class. I held a small paper. I looked at the children. I told them about dreams. I told them about family. I told them about giving and growing. I said, "Sometimes we don't get the stage, but we still make the show happen." They clapped. Some smiled. Some teachers had tears. Emily stood at the back of the room. She clapped the loudest. After that day, I was asked to help with the school speech group. I said yes. I started to teach young students how to write, how to speak, how to believe in their own voices. I did not speak on big stages. I did not have videos or lights. But I found a new joy. I found my place. I saw students grow. I saw them speak for the first time. I saw their hands shake, their voices rise. I saw their eyes light up when people clapped. Emily joined me sometimes. She helped the younger children. She said, "This is the best part, giving back." One afternoon, a young girl came to me. She said, "Miss Lucy, I want to speak like you." I smiled and said, "You will. You just have to start." That evening, I walked home with Emily. She said, "You gave up your dream, but you still found a way to live it." I said, "Yes, it came back in a new shape." She said, "I'm glad it did." And I was, too. I did not wear a medal. I did not go viral. I was not famous, but I gave someone else a chance.